Let's do it.
All right, so let's see. This is called 3 cameras. Let's see if it works. Hey, there we go. 3 cameras. 3 cameras and a baby. So, so it's Extra Life weekend on our Discord server. Officially, Extra Life weekend is tomorrow and Sunday, but we're doing 3 days of streaming and games on our server. We did a stream between 9 and 11. We were supposed to do a stream from like noon to 1, but ended up working on stuff off stream just for speed reasons and other stuff like that. But we're meeting up with Orph, so it's me, Dom, and Orpheus. We're all DMs. I guess we're all quote unquote professional DMs because people have given us money to run Dungeons and Dragons for them. So that is the definition of a professional. So we were gonna hang out for like an hour and talk about like common questions that we've encountered or that we've had, and kind of get each other's opinions about it. And then if anybody in chat has any questions, or anybody on our Discord has asked any questions about DMing recently, we're gonna try to weigh in on those questions. So I guess just a real quick like who is everybody? Online I go by CRASHDOM. I've been running D&D games since I was a little baby, so about 28 years or so. I started with 2nd edition, and I've run every edition of D&D, and then a few of the others like Pathfinder and World of Darkness, and the different subsidiaries of World of Darkness, and played some Rifts and some GURPS and whatnot. I run a lot of weekly games, and I play in a weekly game, and I feel like I know a decent amount about D&D, but I'm always learning new things every single week that I continue to run and play Dungeons and Dragons. So, Dom?
Dom. I guess on the internet, I'm Dom Odyssey.
Okay.
All right. I've only been DMing for I guess 2 years now. I started in 2019, the end of 2019. Uh, uh, Actually, I think the first time I started was actually in the beginning of 2020 because of the pandemic. And I didn't know about D&D until like, I don't know, 2018. That's the first time I played D&D. Somebody at work was like, hey, I want to do a D&D thing at work. And I was like, I've heard of that. I saw somebody play a Star Wars D&D thing. They were actually playing Fate, but I thought it was D&D at the time. And then he was like, okay, yeah, we can do it. And then I went through and learned from them. We played for maybe like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it fell apart because everybody got busy. And then from there, I was like, man, this is actually pretty cool. I want to try and learn more about this. And then 2 years later, I was able to, I couldn't really get into a game, so I ended up deciding, you know what, I'll just try and DM.
All right.
I also wanted to hang out with my friends because of the pandemic.
And how's that been going?
I mean, after going through it, I have that game that I started with my friends, never finished. We all got too busy. But since then, I just been like, okay, I really like doing this thing. I really like D&D. I really like DMing. So once I got onto here, I was like, you know what? I want to go get do this for real. So did the one shot, got a little bit more comfortable, learned Foundry, and then did Brian, my first ever campaign.
Yeah, and start to finish on that one.
Yeah, start to finish. Yeah.
Very nice. And Orph, what's going on?
Well, hi everyone. I'm Orpheus, Caleb, whatever everyone wants to call me. I started playing D&D at a weird time in middle school, and we would try to play 3.5, and I don't know if it was just the group that I was with, or if it was me, or it was just middle schoolers being middle schoolers. We read the book probably 5%. So we played D&D for a little while. I got to high school. I think it was us just making up stuff. Like for me, I was like, I just want to be a werewolf doing werewolf stuff. Such the beard. One of my friends wanted to just be a tornado, and we just did stuff like that. After that friend group kind of disbanded, I did not do anything D&D related until I was 25 or 26. I saw a random clip nail on YouTube for Dice Camera Action, and I listened to it. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I want to get back into this hobby. So I immediately got on Roll20, and I joined the first game I found. I don't know if you guys ever had experience just joining a random group on Roll20.
Mm-hmm.
The DM didn't have anything prepped. The players kind of all interjected one after the other. It was just the most random, chaotic experience ever. Even after having an experience like that, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep trying until eventually I saw that there was paid groups, and I was like, I'll try a paid group. And I experienced a similar thing in some paid groups.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm a professional fitness instructor. I teach people how to do things for a living. I'm going to do this as a side hustle. And then I started doing it. And I haven't stopped. I started doing that in 2018. And I love the hobby. I had a baby. I had a little bit of a pause. And now I've ramped it back up again. And I'm glad to be here talking with you guys. I've watched a lot of your games Crashed. I'm rewatching your game, Dom, of Rom of the Frost Maiden, because I'm about to run my own campaign. And it's really cool to be able to sit here and talk to you guys.
Nice. All right. So, all right. What is when people find out that you DM? What is the most common question that they ask you, or what's the most common question you get asked by other people when they find out that that you're DMing?
If I can start,
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I decided to go back to college, and you always have icebreakers, or you have opportunities to talk about yourself, and that's something that I mentioned, that I play Dungeons and Dragons. One of my things that I do on the side is I run paid groups, and when I mention that, people just immediately say, I've wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons for a long time. I saw it in Stranger Things. I wanted to start playing. My brother or my dad used to play, and I want to start playing. I was being a bad student, and during a lecture one day, I was prepping for a campaign, and the person sitting next to me was like, "Hey, are you prepping Dungeons and Dragons?" I was like, yeah, I'm prepping. I should be listening to this lecture about structural anatomy, but
Right.
it is what it is. And they're like, "Could we play sometime?" I haven't gotten to play in like 2 or 3 years. I'd really like to play. So I ran a small group of my classmates through the first couple of adventures in the Lost Mine of Phandelver. So I think you just never know who is going to be into the hobby when you meet a group of people. Like, Dom, the people at your job, for example.
So yeah, I mean, most of the people that there was like maybe like 2 people that were into Dungeons and Dragons at my job. They're not there anymore. They moved on since then. So I think I'm the only one there who's into it. But we have gotten a lot of new people, and I haven't gotten a chance to talk to them. So
That's fair.
maybe.
Before,
but,
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Like, in terms of like what when people find out if you're DM and stuff like that. For me, it's a lot of times it's people who just don't know what D&D is. At least in my like people around me, almost pretty much all the people that I live around me that I interact with on a day-to-day basis don't really know what D&D is. They might have recognized it from Stranger Things, but then they're like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. So most of my D&D is actually online. I haven't really had too many in-person D&D moments with people.
Ah, okay. So building off that, since you guys have kind of the same experience there, of the number one question you get is what is D&D, right? Is that kind of the takeaway, or well, yours is what is D&D, and yours was kind of can we play D&D? That's quite a difference there. I more frequently get the what is D&D question from people that just like hear about me doing it and stuff like that, or they remember it from when they were younger, or they know about it peripherally through like Stranger Things or some other like pop culture reference or whatever. But how do you guys explain D&D? Like, what is your elevator pitch? Like, how do you quickly and succinctly explain what Dungeons & Dragons is?
I always say it's a combination of improv and playing a board game.
Okay. Improv plus board game. Nice. Yeah. All right.
Like if you're into like an improv show, but you also have a board game.
Okay.
I try to tell people off the front, I am sorry, you do not unfortunately get satanic powers. I have been doing my best for the last few years to get them.
Yeah.
And I have failed at every attempt.
You're playing the wrong edition to get the satanic powers.
Oh.
So yeah.
That's my issue.
Yeah.
I always tell them, hey, it is very much like an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway, where you're going to be put into these situations, you're making a character, you're acting out as that character, so improv, and then unfortunately enough, there's math.
Yep.
So it's improv and math, and you put them together, and you get this wonderful thing.
That sums it up. Yeah. That is my answer when people ask me, well, what is Dungeons and Dragons? I'm like, well, it's like equal parts math and improv, and they're like, well, that sounds horrible. And it's like, well, I'm not very good at marketing, so but yeah, there it is. I think board game plus improv might help a little bit, but I think a lot of people, if they don't like math, they probably also don't like board games too much, because I feel like
so usually whenever I like I said, most of my D&D has been online. So
yeah.
we don't really do the math. The computer does it.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
For me, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like playing Monopoly online, but you're actually playing. You have to pretend to be the actual business person.
I have to prepare to be the boot. Yeah. I have to. What is my motivation as Top Hat? Obviously to make monopolies. So fair.
Either of you guys just get an idea for a one shot off of that?
I mean, little bit. Yeah. I would run the Wendy's one shot before I ran a Monopoly was one shot, though, for sure. All right, so here's
a game of life one shot.
Here's a question that I get asked frequently. It is, what advice do you have for new dungeon masters? What advice do you have for new dungeon masters? That's like not only the biggest question that I seem to get asked. I think on my prep streams, which I don't honestly know why people even ask me questions on prep stream, because I'm just a terrible streamer. Like, I'm like streaming just because I'm working on my stuff, and I was like, I'll stream at the same time. But they're like asking questions, and they're good questions. But I'm also like, but I want to work on my prep. But like the question I get asked the most is, like what advice do you have for a new DM? I'm my friends convinced me to DM. I'm DMing this Saturday. What should I do? Like, what is the advice for the new DM?
I can start that.
All right, go for it.
So usually whenever somebody asks me that, the thing I tell them is, make sure, just if you already have a group of people, you're already doing better than most. And if you have that group of people, just let them know that, hey, we're going to try and figure this out. I'm new. I don't know I'm not sure how to do this. We're going to go through this slowly, and then get a pre-written adventure. Get like what you call it, Fandelver or the Essential Kit, and just use that as your guide. Just follow what it is, and then if you want to make changes, go ahead. But like, if you're trying to be a storyteller and like there's a part in this adventure that you're like, okay, I'd rather this happen, then go ahead and make that change if you want to. But you always have the backbone there to guide you to get through this.
Dom, I think that's an excellent point, because I think it's an anxiety-inducing experience for some people, because you're front and center, you're the game engine, you're the computer, and when you sit down behind that screen for the first time, you're like, whoo. So I would say first step, take some deep breaths, relax. You don't have to put that pressure on yourself to like someone who's done it for 10,000 hours. I do martial arts, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I would tell someone, hey, you're not a black belt at this yet. You're just a white belt. You're just getting started. So it's okay to talk people through your mindset or what you're doing as you do it. I think, Dom, you did that a few times in Rhyme, where I think you did, where you're like, oh, hey guys, we're running this kind of mechanic. This is how I kind of want it to play out. Let's see how it goes. And I think that's a very good
communication. Like if you're playing with your group, if you're playing with a group of friends, like just talk to your friends about it. Like say, hey, we're trying to figure this out. This might take a little second. Let's try and figure it out. And then if somebody doesn't, if there's like a mechanic that you guys don't know how it works, as a DM, try and think of something that'll probably be fun at the time, and then figure it out. If you don't want to, waste time to figure it out right now, you don't have to. You can just make a ruling. If you're not sure about it, you can make changes later. But just make sure you're communicating. Like, hey, I'm not sure how this works right now, but we're gonna go with this, and then afterwards we'll look it up.
Mm.
If you don't wanna hold up the game, but if you guys are all playing together and there's no time constraint, no one's getting the time wasted, then yeah, take the time and look it up if you want with your group, with your friends. You all are learning at the same time, especially if everybody's new.
Mm-hmm. And that,
And here's a sub question.
yeah.
Do you guys think it's smart for a new dungeon master to run a session 0, or do you think that it is harder for a new dungeon master to run a session 0?
I think that that's good. That's a good follow-up question. I think that if you have a good session 0 guide, I think that any modern game, let's see, you're 2022, we're heading towards 2023. Politically, the world is pretty crazy, pretty divided. Socially, people are all over the map. If you're meeting people that you don't know online, even if you have friends that you've known a long time, I tell people that that are DMing, I'm like, have you seen HBO's Westworld? Because get ready to get shocked by some of the stuff people do when they're in a simulation, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know people until they are in a simulation. Because some people, they got a lot going on in here that they don't ever let out. But once they feel comfortable exploring that stuff in what is essentially a place where there's no consequences, they might start to act like they're in a place with no consequences. So even if you've known these people forever, it does not hurt to get everyone together ahead of time and say, hey, so this is a game. You can do a lot of stuff in this game. I need to know up front, what's everybody comfortable with? What's everybody not comfortable with? What kind of stuff do we want to get up to? And they say, oh, I don't know. I've never played the game before. That's where a session 0 guide is so important. Because it tells you what questions to ask, because it's not easy to do a good session 0. And you just kind of together walk through the list, and it might just it might turn some people off. They might be like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. I don't want to have to think about all this stuff and deal with all this stuff. Maybe that's not the best person to play this game with at this point, because you really don't want people walking away from the experience with negative connotations of the game and or with you, right? And as the DM, you're the manager, you're the director, you're the producer, you're the one who is allowing what happens at the table to happen. And a lot of people who are convinced to DM or convince themselves to DM or step up to DM, they don't understand that there is a responsibility there as well. In a sports comparison, you are the referee. If you let all the football players start punching each other in the throat, that ain't going to be a good. I mean, that'll be a fun game to watch, but that's not going to be a good game of. Yeah, it's not going to be a good game of football. The people that invested in those football players, those football teams, they're not going to appreciate their players getting jacked up. You have a responsibility there. You are responsible for all of the people at the table and the experience that they have. Are you directly responsible for their actions? Absolutely not. But you are responsible for how those actions are responded to and how they are mitigated. So if you allow a person to indulge their secret racism via fantasy racism, and it's upsetting to people at the table, you allowed that to happen. You're in charge of the table. If somebody does something too sexual at the table and it makes people very uncomfortable, that if you did not immediately address that and immediately correct that and immediately stop that, that is on you as well. You can't just pass the buck down the line. You are the rules. You are the enforcement of those rules at the table. So I think that's a big responsibility that people don't understand when they're asked to DM, and I think that leads to a lot of bad first sessions of bad experiences in general. So yeah.
How would you what advice would you give a new DM for that? If they you tell them that they have these responsibilities, what would you? And they're just their first time DMing. How would you have them kind of get through that?
Oh yeah, I think that's another great question, because that really boils down to how important that session 0 is, right? I think that having a session 0 might actually be the most important advice, followed by communications, because through a session 0 you can set all of those expectations, you can set all of those boundaries, and part of those expectations is letting the players know, hey, you're my boss at work, but we agreed to all play D&D together after work. During D&D, you are not the boss anymore. Like, during D&D, I've been put in charge of this group. I need to manage the group and make sure that things are on task, right? There can be those kind of power structures, right, that carry over into the game from other areas of life. These are all things that would need to be addressed in a session 0, where you explain, especially to newer players, but also to established players. Some of the worst stories you hear is a new DM who has experienced players. And the experienced players talk over them, constantly correct them, point out all the things they're doing wrong, try to, like, browbeat them into running the game the way they want, take advantage of their inexperience to run like a broken build or a broken character that is going to be disruptive to the campaign. A lot of times those experienced players are the worst problem players for new DMs. And that's another thing that needs to be discussed before the game. You need to say, hey, I agreed to do this, even though you've done it before. This is to give you a chance to be a player and all that. Or I know that you've never DM'd, but you've been a player for like a couple of years. I'm going to need your help out there. Like, I'm learning, I'm making the calls. Ultimately, I'm helping to narrate and drive the story, but I'm also the one that's got to manage the table, set those limits, enforce those limits. And with you being more experienced than me, I very much expect you to not only help me but support me, like, while I'm doing this. These are hard things to tell another person. Yeah.
And another thing too, like, at the end of the day, it just may not work out in the group playing D&D together. That's a possibility, but you're gonna, put all the effort you can in to make it work. But sometimes you guys just may not play D&D well. You might be good friends outside of D&D, but who knows? Maybe when D&D is happening, that's not a thing that you guys click on.
That is a great point to bring up. Yeah, like, there are a lot of groups I hear about where they're like, well, the group's not great. There's a person that's always on the phone. There's a person that never shows up. There's a person that's always like playing WoW or Final Fantasy. I'm just trying my best. It's like, why are you playing with these people? Well, we're friends. And it's like, okay, but this is your time, right? You're investing like 4+ hours a week prepping and 4+ hours a week running the game. That's like 8 hours of your life that you are putting into something that you take seriously, and they aren't taking it seriously. Like, you need to talk to them about it. You need to say, like, hey, why are you here? It's like, oh, well, I wanted to spend time with you. And it's like, okay, but this is important to me, right? And I don't just want you to sit there. I want you to be engaged. It's like, well, I'm not really feeling it. It's like, well, then tell me that. Like, don't keep showing up to spare my feelings, because you're actually hurting my feelings by showing up and not being engaged. Like, we can find other things to do together. We can find other hobbies to share together. This just happens to be one that I'll have to share with somebody else. Like, and that's okay. You can't. Everybody looks at Critical Role and they're like, I'm going to have this beautiful, shining, perfect group, and everyone's going to be beautiful, and they're all going to be amazingly talented and funny and charismatic, and I'm going to tell the best story of all time. Right. Those guys are getting paid, everybody. Like, those guys are getting paid. Mm-hmm. Like, they might have beef with Matt. They might be frustrated about stuff going on in their life. They put all that to the side so that they can be friendly and engaged and, having a great time with their group in front of the camera. That's the product that's being sold. Real life is much messier than that. I appreciate when I'm running games, I'll have players right before a session. They'll say, hey, I had a horrible day at work. I do not want to engage in any role playing tonight. I'm going to hang out and I'll roll dice, and I definitely want to play, but I do not have it in me to give it 100%. And like, they're just honest about that. And like, that to me is the kind of group, the kind of environment that I want. I don't want a bunch of fake people that are pretending to be happy all the time. but I also don't want people who are showing up because they feel obligated to, right? Like, oh, well, I signed up for the game. I don't really want to quit, even though I don't really like it. Or, I feel like we're friends and I don't want to let you down. It's like, I want the people there to be there, and if you're having a bad week and you're having a bad time, just be honest about it, and then we'll work around it. But so much of the problems of D&D are social problems because it's a social game. And it's very hard to fix social problems. It's very hard to fix social problems. So,
$1 billion industry, right?
right? Yeah. I mean, any MMO guild leader could tell you it's hard to solve social problems. But I feel like tabletop is like a step above that. I feel like MMO social problems are difficult, right? Like running a guild, keeping everybody happy, keeping everything organized. It's a similar set of skills. But I feel like everybody's kind of on the same page in a video game. Like, we're here to run this script. We're here to do this specific thing. We're here to perform under the right circumstances at the right time and get a product at the end. But like, tabletop is so freeform and so chaotic that like there's so many opportunities for things to go off the rails. And sometimes they were never on the rails. And it's there, that lack of structure can lead to so many issues, so many conflicts, so many social problems. It's a hard job being a DM. I would never lie to anybody and say, oh yeah, everybody could be a DM. It's easy. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to tell anybody that that's the truth, because it's not. It's like really hard. I think it's very hard to be a DM, and especially a good one. And so yeah, I would never just put out there, hey, this is it. But yeah, going back to that original question, my advice, similar to you guys, is communication. More than knowing the rules, more than anything else, communication is the most important thing. If you are not good at communicating, I don't think you're going to be a very good DM. That's the plain truth right there. I feel like if you are not a good communicator and you're not willing to learn how to be a good communicator, you are not going to be able to be a good DM. Yeah. So
I agree
I
with
mean,
that.
honestly, that is the job of a DM, is to communicate not only the whole social thing for outside the game, but like inside the game too, like explaining what the environment the characters are around.
mm-hmm.
Explaining mechanics, explain a lot of explaining and describing. So
somebody
communication is very important.
somebody pointed out to me that there's a difference between being a writer and being a storyteller. So like, a writer sits down alone, right? And they write out the story that they want to tell. And maybe during the process, they have people that they bounce the ideas off of. They have an editor that takes a look at it, a publicist, right? They go back for revisions and things like that. But it's a process, right? It's a process that they go through. A storyteller is there in the moment, right? They're looking at their audience. They're listening to their audience. They are watching their audience, and they are adapting the story, the tone of the story, the direction of the story. They see when certain parts of the story are losing the audience, and they gloss over those parts to get to a more exciting part to get that audience back. They are a entertainer. They are a performer. They are not just telling a story, right? They are engaging an audience in the story. Big difference between a storyteller and a writer. A writer could probably write a better story than a storyteller, but a storyteller could make a bad story good just by telling it well. So, and I feel like that's another thing, that's wrapped up in that communication skills. Like, a good communicator not only can speak, but they can listen. And listening is not just hearing, but it is hearing, understanding, and adapting to what you're hearing. Like, that's the skill set, in my opinion. The rules, knowing the rules, all that, completely secondary. You could be the best walking rules encyclopedia, the ultimate rules lawyer law firm. People aren't going to be having a good time in your game if you can't tell a good story, if you can't communicate with them about what your expectations are, if you can't listen to what their expectations are, and you can't adapt everything to fit that. So,
I agree with that wholesale.
Yeah.
I shared a document in the staff talk that I think helps with that. That I use as part of my session 0. It's the consent checklist. I give it to everybody and I make everyone fill it out before we start session 0, so that we know that we're all on the same page. I think if I could create a session 0, like, I don't know, a module or a session 0 list, I would include this in there as the first step, because it helps everyone get on the same page. Because you might not know that your player is actually really, they don't want to talk about severe weather for some reason.
Sure.
In a module that I'm running, a module that you're running, Crash, a module that you played in, Dom, that was a big thing. There was a hurricane over this city.
Right.
That could trigger somebody. Maybe they have to deal with that at some point in their life. Maybe they live in Florida. They don't want to be reminded that happens every year.
That particular campaign was full of potential triggers. It was overflowing with potential triggers that are covered by this list. So
the Misha Peterson module.
Yeah,
some people might call this.
I don't
can
see.
we just say honest?
I don't see cannibalism on this list for David, so we're gonna need to add cannibalism on here. So. That's the other thing. That's the other thing to bring up, as teasingly as we're saying this. You might do all your due diligence. You might put this list out there. You might have your session 0. Here's the thing: like, a normal person's normal life doesn't have a lot of this stuff in it. So, like, people maybe don't know what is upsetting to them until they are upset by it. So you definitely need to keep that door open.
Deer.
Yeah. You don't know if playing a sound effect of a deer screaming is going to dredge up childhood trauma of having to go hunting with their fathers. You don't know if a party member participating in cannibalism to win out a strange diplomacy scene is going to absolutely unhinge somebody. You don't know how people are going to react to this stuff, because these are not normal situations. These are fantastical situations. And so you definitely, part of that communication, you definitely need to be ready and willing to adapt, to pause, to step away, to listen to what they have to say. And the players, if you have a good group, they're always going to feel comfortable either pausing things right then or telling you afterwards, hey, today was really rough for me, and here's why. And, you don't want to be running the kind of game where people suffer in silence. You definitely don't want that.
Another thing about that is let your players know that they should communicate with you.
Yeah.
Because you might be the one who's okay with communicating and let people know stuff like this. A lot of times, a player might not feel confident enough to go and talk to you about something. So it's good to let them know that, hey, if something's not, something's up, please let us know, or let me know.
For sure. It kind of sounds like we need to make sure that there's a solid session 0 kit out there. That's what it sounds like needs to happen. Like, I know there's a lot of good ones floating around, but I don't feel like they are made known and accessible as much as they could be. Because I do think that that's definitely going to help quite a bit.
I agree with that. Do you guys ever feel like the bystander effect is real in your games? Like, if you say, for example, party, what do you do? Or you talk to the group in maybe a general term, and then you get a little bit of silence versus addressing people specifically?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's kind of wrapped up in what I call, like, to, DM NPC or no DM NPC. Because there are groups that I've had that if they did not have a DM NPC, they would never roleplay. They would just kind of drift from one combat encounter to the next combat encounter. And not that that's bad if you have a group that is very combat hungry and combat centric, and you've got some really juicy, meaty combat rules, and everybody's looking forward to that. But if you want that sort of well-rounded Renaissance tabletop experience, you know, being involved in the lore, being involved in the world, being connected to the NPCs, that is a part of the experience. If you want a kind of well-rounded game, and so very much if you find that your group is not doing that, that is the time to sort of introduce, you know, one or two NPCs that never outshine the party, but are definitely there to engage the party and pull the party into that world. A beautiful example of this is BioShock Infinite. You know what I'm saying? Where you got like Elizabeth or whatever, and she doesn't, you know, ever get hurt during the fights. She doesn't ever really contribute meaningfully except to give you like ammo and stuff like that. But she is like, you're in a first person body, right? In that game, first person shooter, and she's like, she's in the world, right? And she knows about the world, and she is a part of the world, and she is like your connection to that world. And so you, without her in, you know, in any way really affecting your gameplay experience, she is affecting your gameplay experience, not mechanically but lore wise, by constantly engaging you, constantly talking to you, constantly reminding you what your character's name is, right? By saying like Booker over and over and over again, right? Like, you feel more immersed because that little side character, that little sidekick or cohort or whatever, they are constantly reminding you, you are a part of this world. You are a part of this narrative. You are important. You are connected to the story. That's a powerful tool, and but it's important to note that at no point during the game, when things start to get hard, does Elizabeth suddenly like roid out and go Super Saiyan and just save the day, right? You still die if you get in over your head. Like, I think there's one or two fights where there's a mechanic that involves her, but it's not like she's not there to save you. You're there to protect her. You're there to be the hero, to be the main character. That's the trap of a DM NPC, is making a DM NPC that outshines the players. In Odyssey, there are literal gods following the heroes around that never upstage the heroes. Like, they, at least if you're running it right, literal gods that do not manage to, upstage the heroes. That's when you're doing DM NPCs right, and that is a great way to get the training wheels on of like role playing and being a part of the world and things like that. So that's my advice for groups that are having difficulty getting into role playing or difficulty engaging with the world, is to give them things to engage to. And if you want to be slightly predatory about it, you once you kind of know what your players are into, you make sure that you got like some real cuties, you know what I'm saying, like some real cutie character arts that they're definitely going to want to interact with, they're definitely going to want to talk to, because that's going to help immensely. For some people, that might just be an adorable monster or familiar or a little critter or something like that. For other people, it's going to be the more traditional, like romanceable Bioshock or BioWare NPC. But like, the mix it up, right? Don't have every single DM NPC be some buxom lady that fulfills your teenage fantasy. Like, put in like an engaging and interesting character. Somebody in chat put Ebenfang comes to mind. He's an adorable little baby dragon who had a lot of alignment issues he was working through. So like, give them something that connects them to the world. If you can't get them connected to the lore of the world, get them connected to a person in the world.
And have that person be connected to the lore.
Exactly. Well, I don't give a shit about saving the world. Damn, it costs me money. I don't care about saving the world, but I care about saving the world because they care about saving the world, because I care about them. Sometimes that's enough.
And a lot of times when you have that character who's making that, I'm that PC who's like in the corner, loner. I don't care about anybody.
Oh my god.
Right? But I have that one best friend.
Mm-hmm.
That one best friend cares about this, so I care about that. Try and do that for them.
There you go. Yeah, that gives them a way to be involved, but still be not involved. Yeah, so that's good. All right.
I have a question for you guys.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Have you guys ever had this situation or scenario, and maybe even from the player side or the DM side? Because I've gotten this a few times, and I always feel like I have to step above board to answer the question, because I always feel like it's kind of it's kind of crazy when players ask you, why hasn't this person solved this? Or why didn't like in Odyssey, for example, why didn't you guys take care of this?
Yeah,
why didn't the
gods do it? Why didn't Elminster solve it? Why didn't Dritz Erden solve it? Yeah, that's a very common question, especially for new players who have not learned the key and most important part of Dungeons and Dragons, which is just have fun. Yeah. In the beginning, they're overthinking it. I remember Matthew Gioza. He's so smart. He's so analytical. He all through Storm King's Thunder, he's like, I don't understand. Why do they want us to do it? We're just a bunch of nobodies. Why do they want us to do it? It doesn't make any sense. There's so many strong people in the world. Why is everyone depending on us? And that's gonna be a hard question to answer in a way that will be satisfactory to someone who is very analytical and very logical and wants an explanation that makes sense. So, a couple of ways to handle it, in my opinion. The first one is, if it's happening in Forgotten Realms, the world of Toril is the size of Jupiter, and it's completely hollow. It has the largest Underdark in the known multiverse. It is always in peril. So, like, just because it's a high fantasy setting full of adventurers and full of famous adventurers, they're busy. Like, it's not hard.
While you're defeating this god over here, there's another adventure party defeating another god on the other side.
Yeah, there's literally like 400 known gods in the Forgotten Realms setting or something. Trust me, everyone else is currently busy. That is why they're depending on you. Why are they depending on you? Because you're there. That's why they're depending on you. In a different setting, say the Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, where there's literal gods going around, they have that written into the adventure. We can't do anything because we made a pinky promise that we wouldn't.
And promises on here are very important.
And if we break these promises, we're screwed. So you're going to be our cat's paws until such a time as we can do it ourselves. But hopefully by then, you're strong enough that we can stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and do it together. That's a pretty easy explanation there. So yeah, there's a lot of things to say. Red-Handed Doom, I established very early on, or I think in the session 0, I established like, hey, this is this is a relatively small world. They've had wars in the past. They haven't had any major conflicts in like 500 or 600 years. They haven't had any major conflicts. The people have basically forgotten what it is to fight. Like, there are a handful of powerful adventurers in the world, but most of them serve as leaders, or they've retired, or the PTSD was too much for them, or they died, or they traveled to lands beyond this one because this area was too boring for them. So like, there is no one else, right? Like, you are the guys. Like, you are the people that they're going to turn to because there is no one else. And then you establish through the game that like, these people are completely inept. They have no idea how to fight or protect themselves from anything. It is a miracle that they're all still alive. Like, and then it becomes like, oh wow, they really are relying on us. Like, I work very hard in the first like 20 sessions of Red-Handed Doom to establish that the town of Drellin's Ferry cannot tie their own shoelaces. Like, these people are a mess. This is what 500 years of peace gets you. It gets you sloppy babies. Yeah, exactly. Like, they just don't know what to do. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff that could be done to sort of explain that away. But it is a common question that new players will ask. You'll find that that once people have played D&D for a while, and gotten a taste, right? They gotten a taste of the good stuff. They're never going to ask you why. They're just going to be like, D&D? Okay. Can I have seconds? Like, they're not going to be like, but why? They're just going to be like, please don't stop. Please. Keep giving me the Dungeons and the Dragons. I don't want you to stop this campaign. I don't want to offer any resistance that might cause you to stop playing Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
It is an addicting hobby, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dom, did you ever feel that way, or at any time that you've been playing, or did you ever feel like, What?
I mean,
How did this come to
I,
us?
I play a lot of like RPGs and stuff like that, and so I've learned early on to not ask that question. Like, yeah, you'll be playing like a, I don't know, like a CRPG, Pillars of Eternity or something like that. And like, oh yeah, in those games they'll do something like, oh, you're the special, you're the chosen one or something like that. But like at that point, I'm like, anybody could have been, we just happen to be the ones doing the adventure. I'm the player right here, so we're gonna go ahead and try and do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll see if we can get strong allies to help us, but we're gonna have to go do it.
Yeah, a butterfly flapped its wings, and
Yeah.
you ended up having to shoulder being a hero. Like that's just how it is, kid. Sorry. Yeah.
But that question has come up to me before, and that was it happened when I was playing through my group of friends from work.
Yeah.
Through Icefire Pete, because we got to the point where we got to a quest, and they're like, why can't you just send the guards to go do this?
Yeah.
And they're like, So my question there was that what's his name saying, oh, the guards need to stay here and protect the town because there might be something happening.
Yeah.
And we're paying other people to go out and do this. And I mean, for that it was okay, but
Yeah.
That was it comes up, yes. That question does come up, especially for people who've never played before.
Yeah. Without making it too political, I'll also just point out to people, like, think about the police that you know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that they could handle this? And then people are like, okay, I understand. They need to stay here and protect the town. And it's like, yeah, that's probably for the best. Yeah. But it's like all things. Like, you can't even, like, I'm playing Animal Crossing. It's like, bitch, like, you can't just go get your own. Yeah, you can't just go get your own apples. You need me to go get apples for you? Like, they're literally on the tree right there. They're on the tree right there, Bertha. Come on, just grab the damn apple. But that's what being a protagonist is about, right? Like, you shoulder the burden, right? That's what you do. You shoulder the burden. You shoulder the
question.
burden.
I kind of want to hear Crash's advice on that. Crash, the whole main character syndrome thing.
Oof. Okay, so the best example I have is when I was a child and I had started the Dungeons and Dragons religion. I would spend every summer at my Aunt Dot's house, and not the Dot that's running the adventure tomorrow, different Dot. And my cousins were basically like my siblings. I'm a military kid, so they were like the only stable relationship I had in my life. Was every summer I'd see these kids, and I grew up with these kids since I was a baby. So I show up one summer, and I have my holy text with me, right? I have the Dungeons and Dragons books, and I'm like, have I got a treat for you? And we spent the whole summer playing D&D, and it was transformative experience, right? Well, my cousin cousin Brenda was very wrapped up in like their Christianity. Like they were, you're trying to figure out who you are, you're trying to find yourself, right? And so there was immediate like pushback, like, but Jesus, but magic, but this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, listen, why don't you could play whatever character you need to feel like this is okay. We'll make it work, right? And they're like, well, I'm going to be a cleric of Jesus Christ. And I was like, sounds good. And they're like, I'm going to teach all the people of D&D land about Jesus. And I was like, I love it. Let's do it. So I still remember that there was a dungeon and there was just a big pit of snakes. And you had to figure out how to get across. And they were like, I know what to do. I will walk across the pit and Jesus will protect me from the snakes. And so they fell in the pit and they were killed by all the snakes. And they were like so upset and they didn't understand like what was going on. And they were like, but we're the main characters. Like, I'm here to teach everyone about Jesus. Like, I don't understand. And I was like, no one's the main character in Dungeons & Dragons. Like, no one's the main character. Like, you're living in this world. You're trying to make a successful run of it in this world, but no one is really the main character. Later, as I grew up as a person and I grew up as a dungeon master, I understood that would be another thing you talked about during session 0, is what kind of game is this, right? In Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, you literally are the main characters. Like, that's the whole thing. You're the main characters. You were ordained by fate to be the main characters. There's big MC energy in that campaign. But in like a regular game, like in Curse of Strahd, Strahd's the main character. Don't go into Curse of Strahd and think you're the main character. Strahd's, it's his name literally on the box is he's the main character. So that's another like session 0 thing that needs to be put out there immediately. I explained in Red Hand of Doom that you're a few versus many. You're the only heroes that are willing to step up and protect the people of the land. But this is also a meat grinder campaign, and I will kill you. And I will kill you a lot. And that was out there in session 0. So that nobody entered into that being like, well, my character, by the time he was 12, he had slain 7 dragons. He was destined by the god of the stars to become emperor of the world. And it's like, cool, but you just took a critical hit from this goblin and you died from massive damage. So I don't know how you beat those dragons because this goblin just one-shotted you. But cool story, bro. Yeah, main character syndrome is really hard. And it plays. You'll find it the most frequently with people who are spotlight hogs. People who love being in the spotlight. They love role playing. They love being the center of attention. They like the story to be about them. They're the people that say their character goes to do something, and then you switch scenes so that other people can get some camera time, and then somehow their character is also in that scene too. I think we all have these players in our groups, and we all know who these players are. And I love these players because I love the enthusiasm that they bring to the table, and I love the skill that they bring to the table. But those are players that you frequently have to talk to every couple sessions and say, hey, this group has got 5 people, 6 people in it. We only play for 3-4 hours. Everybody needs to have a chance. Everybody's got to say something. You know, you had a lot of time on, you know, a lot of camera time, as it were, a lot of spotlight time, but you got to make sure we focus on other people. Again, that's the job of the dungeon master: communication, expectations. You have to be willing to go in there and do that. As a player, as a person that DMs all the time for 28 years, when I'm a player and I have one character that I'm responsible for instead of the entire world, it is very hard for me to not just want to be playing all that. And so I have had to sort of develop a very lazy style as a player to make sure that I am not being that spotlight hog, to make sure that I am not like over engaged and like kind of pushing the other players down or pushing them around, because I don't want to be that player when I'm a player. But for DMs especially, it can be very hard to not have that sort of main character syndrome, because you never get to play a character, and you finally do. And now the character, you know, you want to make the best, coolest character, and you want to be in the spotlight. Yeah. Again, almost every problem in D&D comes down to communication and expectations. Same thing with main character syndrome. I would actually prefer a person who has main character syndrome to a person who has I'm Batman loner syndrome. Batman loner syndrome is one of the worst player and character types you could ever have at table. The ones that they build a character that's designed to run solo, and then they get upset when you don't run solo for them. I play rogues a lot, and I only scout ahead if the party says I should scout ahead. If I ask the party, hey, do you want me to scout ahead? Because I know that they're going to miss out on opportunities to play if I'm the one that's like scouting ahead. But there are people who build entire builds around that concept of like, I'm going to do this. I made an assassin. The DM has to respect my player agency. I have to be able to assassinate people. I have to be able to go on assassination missions. It's like, this is a group game. A loner build is just as bad as like a main character syndrome, because you think that the game is there for you to play. The game is there for your group to play. Yeah. So again, but the short answer is communication, expectations. Yeah. And as Josh points out, yeah, assassination subclass just sucks. So it's a trap, guys. Don't play assassin. You want to do big DPS, you play arcane trickster. That's how you do big DPS. Sorry to hurt everybody's feelings. Assassin's trash. So all right.
And if you're an arcane trickster, you get to say Mage Hand Legerdemain, 13 times a session.
That, yeah. Mm.
You get to pronounce that weird word, however you pronounce it.
Mm. So what are some other, do you guys have any other questions or questions that come up that you want to discuss? Because, I mean, we're approaching that 1 hour mark that we said we're going to do. Is there any other questions that come up a lot, or questions that you have from things you've been doing?
I think I have one, but I'm trying to decide which one. Give me a second.
Okay.
If you have some notes, go for it. But
I just want to say thank you guys for letting me come in and sit down with you guys, because you both are inspirational in your own ways, because you both are so good at the things that you do well, and it helps motivate me to do the things that I want to do better at, better at them. Dom, your encounter design is so amazing. The ways that you create special abilities that make each encounter feel different and engage the players, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Crash, the way that you characterize NPCs that I am guessing at the moment have no writing prompt, no backstory, not important, and those people that you have created, those thought strokes that you've created, they become staples to a campaign that people just love and can't take a session to without them being in their life. That it's amazing to me, and something that I am trying to do better at. A question that I have for you guys: how do you handle a large category or a large cast of NPC characters? For example, in Odyssey, you have a whole boat of characters.
Witchlight.
In Witchlight,
Yeah.
you have a strange band of just I don't even know how to describe it. Just like the most random people that you have found on your adventure following behind you. How do you handle these thought constructs being in the game without taking over the game just with their interactions?
That is a great question. I run a lot of different games, and I normally try to avoid groups larger than 5 players. With Red Hand, I had a lot of people apply for it, and I wanted to play with people I had never played with before, which is unusual for me because I hate people. But I wanted to play with new people because I was getting into a rut of like always kind of playing with the same people out of like a comfort thing and stuff like that. But I wanted to try and play with new people, and so I was like, all right, if you guys are okay with it, why don't we do 6? Why don't we do 6 players? Because frequently, when a campaign first starts, somebody can't last to the end, right? And they were like, well, I mean, if you think you can handle it, let's do it, that kind of thing. We know that it means less screen time, longer combat, stuff like that. But I was like, I think this is a good group, and I think these are good guys, and I think it's going to be a good group. There is significantly less B team interaction in that game because we have 6 people that all have a story they're trying to tell, that are all trying to tell a story with each other, and they're all trying to like interact with each other and things like that. And so I don't want to be taking that time away from them. Like, they have less time. I have noticed that the difference between 5 players and 6 players is so pronounced as to feel almost like a different game. I don't know why the jump from 5 to 6 feels so heavy, but it really does. And they just don't have the ability, really, the time to kind of get all the things done they want to do every session if those NPCs are there. And it's unfortunate because they don't get to develop as strong as they would in a game where those NPCs do have a bit more structure and a bit more. So what I have to do in those games is I have to make the scenes with those characters count a lot more. And so like the NPCs in Red Hand are a lot more exaggerated, I think, and a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Not token, but
characters.
they're characterizations of what you would expect, right? So you've got this one guy that he's like a dwarven. He tried to lead a rebellion against the dwarven king and he got exiled. So every time he's talking, I have to very much sum up that this is a guy who made a decision, lives with regrets, is just kind of like waiting out the last years of his life. Doesn't really think anything. Caricatures, thank you, Butler Log. Yeah, he's the gruff veteran who tried and failed, and now he's just disillusioned, right? So I have to make sure that that's driven home every single time because these characters don't get a lot of screen time in a game with 6 actual player characters. And so every one of those characters has to be so much more of a characterization than they normally would. Sly Flourish, his technique for NPCs is tropes, right? So they meet this character and you choose 2 tropes and you mix them together. So you're like, okay, yeah, they run into this bandit captain, and the bandit captain is, he's definitely your racist uncle at Thanksgiving, and but also he is your weird music instructor, right? And so like you're just kind of like, okay, how do I make these guys work? And you're just kind of blending it together, and you're just kind of pulling from those tropes. Or maybe it's not your weird music instructor. Maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to base this guy entirely on Two-Face. He flips a coin for everything. It's all about like twos. It's all about luck. It's all about chance. And the players are going to immediately latch onto that because they know who Two-Face is. So they're going to be like, oh, that guy's just like Two-Face. Okay. And they're immediately connected to that guy, right? They're immediately connected to him because you're using a popular trope. They know, oh, it's racist uncle. I know racist uncle. I hate that guy. And now you're done. You've already moved past all of the nonsense. They know exactly who this character is. He's racist uncle. Tropes are like a super fast way to get people on board for who a character is, what a character's about, that sort of thing. And for a game that has a lot of NPCs, aka Skull and Shackles, I actually had a Google spreadsheet. I actually had a Google spreadsheet to manage all the NPCs. And
B-team, right?
well, that's beyond the B team. I had an actual NPCs document that would list their personalities, what trope they were based on. And now there's that one mod, was it Blitz's voice actor or whatever mod? What a lifesaver. NPC is introduced. Whatever random ass stupid character voice comes out of my mouth when I first introduce that character, now I have it recorded in a little snippet. So when that character shows up 10 sessions later, I'm not desperately trying to dig through the backlog in my mind to remember what did that character sound like. I don't have to look at the notes I put in the spreadsheet that says sounds like this. I could just play that clip and remember what they sounded like. So that's been helping a lot too. So there are a lot of tools you can use for that. The downside of that is you have to have a unique actor for every NPC, and Foundry does not like you to have a lot of unique actors. So in a long campaign like Skull and Shackles or Odyssey, you're starting to really get resource bloat just from trying to maintain these continuous NPCs. But yeah, it isn't easy, and it's definitely one of the things I think I do best as a DM, for sure. So
I agree with that. It is very challenging. It was very challenging at the end of my Witchlight game when they had 3, 4, 5 NPCs from each chapter that they wanted to recruit, that they wanted to bring with them, and then comes time for chapter 5, and they have, 15, 18 people following them. How does each of these characters have a good goodbye?
Right. And that's the thing that I'm already a bit nervous about with Curse of Strahd is I'm using like a cohort system, which is like a more advanced B team system. And basically every character has a B team member that is in combat and is following them around. But they don't really do anything except be in peril and occasionally like help out. But when they help out, they put themselves into more peril. So right off the bat, you've got 5 NPCs hanging out with the party. You got a squad of 10 people going everywhere in the campaign. And this is an older 5th edition adventure The venues are very small. 10 people is a lot of people in a traditional D&D dungeon with 5-foot wide hallways and stuff like that. This is definitely going to cause tactical issues having so many people with you. There is a reason why they call it a small tactical team, because a small tactical team can get places that a bigger group can't unnoticed. They can move through places without causing a commotion or getting clogged up in the hallway. So I think mechanically it's going to be a challenge to see how this cohort system works out.
I think what might end up happening is like if we get to that point and we find a place that's like safe,
Like a sanctuary, yeah.
a sanctuary. I feel like we might like, okay, can you guys keep our sanctuary safe while we go out to do this thing and then come back, and then when we move over to the next location, then we can all go together.
Right, and
Maybe one of those
I
things.
think it's kind of neat because I think we'll be able to prove mechanically through gameplay why D&D is played with small groups. It's not just because you want combat to go faster. It's because tactically it's hard to manage like 10 units on the map at a time without somebody getting killed or somebody getting caught out. You know what I'm saying? How do you manage healing resources for 10 different people? A fireball goes off and it roasts 4 of your 5 people. That's hard enough to get all those people up. But fireball goes off and it roasts 8 of your 10 people. How are you going to prioritize getting everybody back up and into the fight? You know, people are maimed, people are injured. Now you're dragging bodies away. You're moving half speed. How do you escape from a fight that goes badly if you have that many people to worry about? So I think it's going to teach us a lot about the value of like a small group. But yeah, I think that the first chance they get to have like Sanctuary, a lot of people are going to opt to not have a cohort and they're just going to drop the people off. And I might even incentivize not having a cohort, right? Because cohorts do give you like abilities and stuff. So I might say like, oh, anybody that doesn't have a cohort, you get X or whatever, or you get to pick between X and Y for not having a cohort, to kind of incentivize not bringing all your NPCs everywhere you go. Yeah. And that campaign has a pretty decent amount of companions to recruit as well. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We're trying a lot of new things in that game, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
And gentlemen, I have to go soon, so could.
Oh yeah, well I mean technically we both have to go soon. Yeah.
All right. I think this was good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good talking and asking questions, and also to kind of counter your thing, Orpheus, at the very end here. You're learning from me. You're learning from Dom because each of us brings different things to the table. I'm learning from you. Like,
yeah, same here.
Yeah, you have a way of running your games that is fun, right? Like it's like a fun that's not afraid to be fun. And to me, that is a very important thing that I sometimes forget. Sometimes I try too hard to run like, oh, it's got to be so cool. Oh, it's got to be so grim. It's got to be so serious. But like it doesn't, right? Like there needs to be these moments of fun and whimsy and things like that. I was definitely trying to pull from your inspiration when I ran Witchlight. And I'm definitely going to try to remember that need for fun when I'm running these Curse of Strahd games, because without them, the advice I've gotten is that people will want to quit, because Curse of Strahd will be so punishing and so depressing that if you don't have these moments of humor and these moments of fun, they are just going to give up. So yeah, everybody's bringing strong stuff to the table. That's what makes our community on Discord so good, I think, is that there's so many different people with so many different styles. We're all learning from each other all the time. So.
I love that. I love that. This is a thing that they talk about in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is something that I wish that I did more. Is that when you get to train with people, when you get to talk with people, you're sharpening your metal, but it's not by hitting each other as hard as you can with your quote-unquote swords. It's by learning from their experiences and gaining that experience kind of on the edge of your sword.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could use that metaphor with you guys, that you are helping to sharpen my metal by gaining your experiences onto my DM sword, and then in kind, I'm giving you my experiences to sharpen your DM sword.
Exactly.
I hope that I can help that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic analogy.
I will say that from that one time I played in your Dogs of War campaign, I learned a lot about just having random when you talk to an NPC, like say they don't. I'm actually doing this in Monster Hunter. Like you go talk to one of the merchants, and they just happen to have something they care about, and that gives the player something to go do for that one NPC. Like I picked that up from when I made my character a bounty hunter, and I went and go talk to one of your NPCs in your game, and you're just like, okay, yeah, the main bad guy is this. Here's a bounty for you. It's the main bad guy. Like just the merchant of like improv of that, and then that just helps you out. I didn't like. That's something I would not have thought out until I saw it done happen to me as a player, and then I recognized it. So now I try and do that in my games now. Like have an NPC care about something, and maybe that becomes like a little side quest that has nothing to do with the campaign, but is there for that player.
It's that slice of life stuff that makes the simulation feel more real. So
yeah.
All right, well, we've got Jackbox with Red Cobalt Gaming at 3, which will then just run right into tonight's games, which is 7 to 2 a.m., 2 different games, both of which can be directly influenced by ExtraLife donations. So, anybody that's listening out there, please join us for some Jackbox between 3 and 7, and then join us from 7 to 2 a.m., either Worlds of Warcraft flavored Dungeons & Dragons or sci-fantasy space horror Dungeons & Dragons.
Looks very Dead Space.
Yeah, so there's 2 different flavors. Bounce back and forth. Have both games open in 2 different browsers. But know that you can donate directly to make our lives miserable or our lives better in these games tonight.
Don't worry, I'm definitely promoting a monster in a Will's game tonight.
Oh, fair enough. All right, so we'll be back in about 30 minutes. Hope everybody's enjoying their Friday. We got a whole weekend full of games and streams for ExtraLife. We got to do more of these improvisational DMs hanging out and talking about D&D stuff streams because they're a lot of fun. So we'll see when we can squeeze them in with everything else that's going on. Maybe we'll do a late night spicy D&D talk, spicy stories from the Dungeons from the Yawning Portal, if you know what I mean. Anyways, all right, so we're gonna cut here and then we'll come back at 3:00. So I hope everybody has a good Friday and donate to ExtraLife. All right,
thank you everyone.